Spiderman! Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be reacting to one of the early uploads. Actually, it's not early, but anyways, one of the videos from the YouTube channel, The Game Theorists. The reason why I didn't say is I made a mistake and said it's early because this video came out in 2018, so it's around 3 years ago, and it's about Spider-Man. Yeah, so yay. Anyways, I hope that you like this video as much as I do. So let's go. Let's start.
Dear Insomniac Game.
Dear Insomniac Games.
Hi, it's me, Austin.
Hi, it's me, Austin.
Congratulations on releasing a AAA game in 2018 that isn't Fortnite and doesn't totally suck. You did it! Now let's tear it down with the power of math. And I mean that let's sincerely. Let's is a contraction of let us. And since this show of mine has pretensions of being educational, today I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide on how to tear down a video game, or honestly, any piece of pop culture. Maybe you're a math teacher at a public school who's burnt out being under the boot heel of Common Core, and you're trying to find ways to stimulate the glassy eyes of students who have checked out ages ago, or maybe you are one of those glassy-eyed students sitting in class right now with
Maybe you are one of them, so you never know.
your phone on in the back of the room, somehow not getting caught watching YouTube in class, and you desperately want to be shown that there's somehow something more to this meager existence and that these numbers and symbols on the board can't possibly just be there to torture you. Well, you've come to the right place, because today, together, we're going over the step-by-step process of how I research a topic like this one, and together we're going to prove conclusively that Spider-Man is a vicious killer.
Oh my god, what? What?
Are you ready? Then let's do this. Actually, if you've played the new Spider-Man game, which is super fun, by the way, I don't own it because I don't have a PS4 yet, but I did go to a friend's house and play it for a few hours, and oh my god, just this is what I wanted. Finally, after almost 20 freaking years, we get a Spider-Man game that gets it and surpasses the Activision release for the original PlayStation.
Oh my god, the original games are a lot of room for improvements, and yeah, it does promise a lot of improvements were made. Awesome.
This is what web slinging is supposed to feel like. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. If you've played the new Spider-Man game, it actually probably becomes pretty apparent pretty quickly that Spider-Man did not take the same oath that Batman did, because this guy racks up a body count pretty quickly, even by comic book force rules. I'm gonna belay judgment since most of these people do try to shoot Spider-Man, but yikes, this dude racks up a pretty impressive kill count in just one playthrough. Step 1 in being a scientist is to play the game.
How to be an internet scientist. Step 1, play the game.
It's a personal rule of mine to play every single game I do a video on, and it's easily the best part of the job. Well, sometimes. Actually,
Oh, FNAF. Sometimes.
playing a game is key because there are some things about a game that you'll never understand if you don't play it. And while you're playing the game, you just look for stuff. You ever watch a movie and for like a moment you're like, LMAO, what? I mean, what? I don't think that's how gun physics work in an airplane, Mr. Neeson. That's your inner scientist crying for freedom. And that's the stuff of magic, and that's the stuff that these episodes are made of. The tools you'll need for this experiment are pretty minimal. A pen and paper, a calculator, the Pythagorean theorem, a handful of other plug-and-play formulas, and your imagination.
And your imagination. World of imagination. That's awesome.
In the case of Spider-Man, two major things stood out to me in the first few minutes of playing this game. Spidey's uppercut I mean, look at this thing! I mean, launching a dude feet into the air seems like excessive force to use on a guy who doesn't have superpowers, Peter. Maybe you should do something more merciful, like ripping his toenails out. But just for safety, we should pick something else. Just, let's go with a wild card, the impact web. It may seem innocuous, but trust me, I've been doing this a while, and if I've learned anything, it's not to underestimate pressure. Okay. So, bada bing, bada boom, step 1 is complete. Find the things that make no PG sense. Step 2 is to get the measurements, and in order to do this accurately, you're gonna need game footage.
Get footage for measurements. Yeah. Pick some measurements.
Thankfully, you don't have to be a big, fancy YouTuber with an Elgato internal capture card like I do to do this. Many consoles have internal recording settings that you can use that suck for quality because they're competing with the internal resources of the console, but they will get the job done in a pinch. And for PC games, you have a number of free options like Open Broadcaster for recording your games. Once you've got your footage of Spider-Man beating the snot out of poor, violent criminals, this is where the real fun begins. And by real fun, I mean meticulous and painstaking measurements of individual pixels comes in. And thankfully, Spider-Man is probably one of the easiest games for a novice scientist to get started with because, and I've mentioned this before, getting a reliable ruler is one of the most difficult things to do in this line of work. It's probably the thing that Matt and I struggle the most with and spend the most time on when doing this sort of thing. Thankfully, Peter Parker has a canon height, and this is
canon height and canon weight and canon age. Wow, wait, 22 years old? That is younger than me. Oh my god. And he can do all the What am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life?
actually reflected in the character biography entry for Spider-Man in-game. 5 foot, 10 inches, or exactly 70 inches. Now, it's time to have a chat about units. I'm an American, which means I use the dreaded Imperial system. In fact, most of the time, I have to convert units back into Imperial when I'm doing math in order to have any understanding of what's actually happening. However, science is done in metric units.
Science is done in metric units most of the time around the world currently at the moment.
So you need to convert all Imperial units into metric if you're gonna be a scientist! It's a rule. Sorry, bud. It'll make everything easier, trust me, from meters per second to newtons to pascals to joules and back again. This is only gonna save yourself time. The conversion of inches into meters is actually pretty simple. Each inch is 0.0254 meters, so just multiply and Shazam! You got 1.77.
Get it. There was a sleep type moment in which I Shazam!
8 meters. All right, we got all we need. So how does this apply to Peter's Uppercut of Doom? Well, thankfully, it's pretty easy. I'd say it's not rocket science, but, well, it actually is a little bit rocket science. Rocket science is actually a little bit easier than you might think. You see, if we can...
Sure, buddy. Did you just say that rocket science is a bit easier than you think then? Yeah, sure, buddy, of course.
Figure out how high up Peter is punching these guys, we can reverse engineer how much force he's imparting into them. Because once your feet are off the ground, you've only got a few things affecting your movement. You've got gravity pulling you down, and you have your vertical velocity moving you up. Gravity is an acceleration in the opposite direction of your travel, so knowing how high you travel up with only one acceleration force acting on your body, we can easily figure out how much force it took to send you flying. In order to do that, we need to plop our footage into a video editor. I use Premiere Pro, but there are free editors out there for noobs on every platform, like Lightworks, which works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. We need to do this because we're gonna need screenshots that are pixel perfect. We export a frame from the moment of impact and one frame from the moment the guy stops and drag these images into Photoshop, or the free alternative GIMP, which is where we're going to be taking all of our measurements from. Now, in order to get accurate measurements, we're going to have to compensate for how Peter Parker is standing, since height measurements are taken from people standing upright, and this dude is kind of like in a hunched, ready for battle pose. In order to compensate for this, we gotta kind of butcher Spidey. Sorry, buddy. Anyway, doing this, we can draw a line where the Mook's feet are when he is on the ground, and then a line at where his feet are when he hits peak height. In this frame, Peter is 296 pixels from his heel to the top of his head. We use this to get a pixel to meter ratio by dividing the pixels of Peter's height by how tall he actually is, which gives us 166.4792 PMs. We measure the distance between those two lines to get 52 pixels, which we divide by our PM ratio, which will give us the height in meters.
It's 512. Spidey caught Austin Chung.
This poor Mook is punched, which is 3.075 meters, or over 10 feet in the air. Given that a constant downward acceleration of 9.806 meters per second is affecting him as he travels upward, his travel...
Wait a minute. We know Spider-Man's weight in the game. We can actually just calculate the gravity, isn't it? Maybe the gravity in the game is different from gravity in real life, instead of 9.81 meters per second square.
Time to peak height on Earth would be 0.79 seconds, meaning his initial launch speed would have to be 7.7773 meters per second. We can figure this out by taking the square root of 2 times the distance traveled divided by the acceleration due to gravity. This is just a reworking of the acceleration distance formula, 1/2 the acceleration times time squared. Since we know everything but time, we can rearrange it to isolate t and get our answer for how long travel takes. Our initial speed, therefore, is just time times acceleration, since moving upward and slowing down is just the reverse of moving downward and speeding up, which gives us 7.773 meters per second. Our Spider-Man frame rate is 30 frames per second, and our Mook reaches top speed in just 1 frame, meaning he accelerates from 0 meters per second to 7.773 meters per second in just 0.033333 repeating seconds, giving him an acceleration of 232 meters per second squared. Holy moly!
Oh my god, that is dangerous. That is really dangerous. Oh my gosh. You can imagine just then flat up in the sky, so high, so fast, and yet so fast and so high.
Now here comes the fun part. Let's assume these guys weigh 60 kilograms. They probably weigh more, but this is the most conservative measurement possible. This is always gonna be your best bet. Chances are the results are still gonna be unreal, so might as well cover our butts and err on the side of doing Spidey favors. Anyway, this means taking our trusty F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration, and plugging in our answers. These dudes have to be hit with a force of 13,979 newtons to pull off that launch speed.
Oh my god, the bones will be broken.
But it does not stop there, because that's just the total force. The next stage is pressure, which is force over an area, which is where the real damage is done. Bullets only take about 3,300 newtons of force to launch, but it's their incredible pressure focused on a tiny spot that allows them to cause as much damage as they do. Now,
that's right. So that's why it's small and yet it's super penetrating. It's really penetrating. Yeah.
This is some 202 scientist math, but measuring Spidey's knuckle size on the loading screen of the game and knowing that the strike surface of a proper punch is focused on these 2 knuckles.
Yes. So, fun fact, if I just done with my friends, they say that, okay, this is how they punch. They use a punch and I divide this. It's like, no. First of all, thumb in. Next, their face was focused on your eyes. Sorry. So thumb in, then inwards. So try to make it like this. But ultimately speaking, it will still be focusing on these 2 knuckles. These 2 knuckles can hit, but it will hurt a lot more. So yeah, the more you know.
Here, we can determine that the strike surface of Spidey's fist is 29.5 square centimeters, roughly. All we have to do now is divide our force here over the area of his fist, and BAM! We get a pressure exerted in megapascals. 4.73 megapascals to be exact. 4 times the pressure exerted by teeth from a human bite. So that's nice. That means probably some broken teeth and a cracked jaw, but it gets way worse from there.
Super worse from there. It is not just simple broken jaw, cracked jaw. It's literally broken. Okay.
This energy imparted into the mook doesn't just stop there. It travels along his body, dissipating as it goes. Remember, it's lifting his entire body off the ground, so it passes through a single key area, his neck. The average circumference of an adult male's neck is 43 centimeters. Dividing this by 2 times pi, we can get a radius of this man's neck, which we can use to figure out the area of a cross-section of his neck. This is how engineers do math. They take cross-sections of materials and calculate the forces applied to them. Given an area of 148.37 square centimeters, you know what to do next. Divide the force by the area to get pressure, which gives us 94 kilopascals applied to the neck, which, according to the study from the Naval Aerospace Medical Research Laboratory Detachment entitled Injury Criteria and Human Tolerance for the Neck, is well—
Oh my god, no! Why? How? No, that's bad for the human body.
over the 85 kilopascals, determined to be the upper limit of pressure tolerance before the transverse ligament of Atlas snaps. This ligament is responsible for holding the spine at the base of your head together. Immediately after this, you'll experience what's called atlanto-occipital dislocation.
Atlanto-occipital dislocation. So it's, one more time, it's atlanto-occipital dislocation. The neck, yeah, it's not good.
Of which only 30% of cases don't result in immediate and irreversible death. And boom, you did it! And now, a fast one just to show off. Using Spider-Man's height again to get measurements for how wide these roof slats are, we can figure out how fast Mooks he's shooting with his impact web are moving. For comparison, here's a video from TAO Fluttermouse of a police beanbag round of comparable size hitting a dummy in the face. Anyway, the slats are 0.7867 meters wide. Boom! Using the loading screen again, we can measure the width of Spidey's web when it leaves his shooter, 16 millimeters at the widest bunchy part. We can then use this to measure the width of the ball he shoots out, which comes out to 39.68 millimeters. Using this, we get an internal volume of 32 cubic centimeters, we'll need that later, and a strike surface of 12 square centimeters. More on that later! I like to use the Pythagorean theorem to get more accurate measurements when I don't have a straight ruler, since pixels can be wonky, and since this Mook moves diagonally, we can determine that he's traveling at 28 meters per second and accelerates to his top speed in one frame, giving him an acceleration of 842 meters per second squared, requiring a force of 50,548 newtons to get the ball rolling. Our webbing is measured at moving at about 26 meters per second, but it would actually have to be moving at least 28 because you can't accelerate something to a faster speed than you're moving. Giving the same acceleration time, this means in order to impart this much force, his webbing would have to weigh over 64 kilograms, or 142 pounds, which would give it a density of almost 2 million kilograms per cubic meter. So
oh my god, the person that is being hit by this will be GG. Literally GG. Oh my gosh.
somewhere around the density is created when a nuclear bomb goes off, but it gets worse. In order to impart these forces, if Spidey's webbing has a density of spiderweb, 1,300 kilograms per cubic meter, it'd have to be moving at 39,600 meters per second, over 100 times the speed of sound, which means it'd be lighting on fire as a compressed air in front of it like a spaceship entering the atmosphere. Not to mention it would create over 40 megapascals of pressure on impact, the impact of a freaking bomb going off. This thing would definitely turn a mook into powder before it launched him off anywhere.
Oh.
And there you go. You have all the tools you need to become a pedantic internet scientist. And if you're looking for a little bit of extra homework, why don't you figure out the physical properties of Spider-Man hitting someone by swinging an oil drum into their face? Here's the angular velocity formula, which will require you to measure some angles, which you can use a PNG of a compass.
Yeah.
And empty steel drums weigh 16.78 kilograms.
Extra homework for mathematics. Wow, that's surprisingly awkward. Huh.
Put your answers in the comments below. How screwed are these poor, helpless henchmen being beaten to death at the hands of Spider-Man? Sincerely, Austin.
Sincerely, Austin. Swinging left, right, swinging. Spider-Man. Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. The mathematics involved in this particular video is just... wow. And that's the reason why I like it, because it's quite nerdy, so... yeah. Alright, anyways, I do hope that you like this video as much as I did. This video came up from the YouTube channel, The Game Theorist, and I hope that you will watch more of their videos as well. If you do like my videos, please consider to like, share and subscribe to my channel, and comment down below if you have any share us. And do follow my channel as well. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Actually, it's not a game theory, it's actually the science of time. But hey, that's just a science. The science of. Thanks for watching. Spiderman! Yeah! 失败了。那是一阵 joke， so yeah.